Hi, welcome. Check It Out with Jessica Lee. I'm here with Cheryl Hatlevig, who is the Director of Field Marketing for the OT business at Fortinet. Hi, Cheryl. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Fortinet just released numbers, fantastic, $2.1 billion in revenue, and you are playing a critical part of the marketing team in driving leads for this business you call OT. And I'll have to just ask if you can explain a bit, but operational technologies has to do with a lot of the manufacturing operations, and you're driving top of mind awareness and then bringing them into middle of the funnel and bringing them to a qualified lead for the sales team. There's a lot of changes in marketing, no longer field marketing anymore. Really, it's all virtual marketing.
Sure.
So Cheryl, welcome to the show, and please explain to us what is the OT business and how are you doing the marketing now in this COVID-19 situation?
Sure. Well, first, a lot of people think about IT when they think of most businesses. And for employees, that means I can get into my applications, I can find data, I can use tools, and I can do my job. But there are business segments in the world today that have a physical side to their practice. So there's IT for data applications, but there's operational technology that's on the manufacturing plant floor or on the energy grid or in the transportation and logistics business. And that has to do with some of the physical parts of how they bring products to market. So in the case of IT, the risk for cybersecurity is a data breach. And data is not necessarily physical, it's bits and bytes, if you will. But on operational technology, we're focused on both the cyber and physical side of that manufacturing plant or electric grid. So it's gauges that measure temperature or throughput or chemical flow in the line of producing a pharmaceutical or some kind of bottled drink. And when you merge cyber applications that share data back to headquarters with physical, like the manufacturing plant or that gauge, you now have operational technology. And the risk to the business is great for data, but it's even greater for operational technology, because when that gauge is hacked and someone messes with the flow or the temperature, things can go boom, and that can be very devastating for a company that relies on that equipment to bring products to market.
Yes, I think in the manufacturing, I hear the industry 4.0. So a lot of digital transformation in manufacturing, a lot of automation, a lot more IoT. And that means that you have a lot more entry points to hack.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I see.
A brand new field for a hacker, and things can move across a network from IT to OT and open the door to lots of things they can play with that can cause some bad activity for that company.
Well, let's talk about marketing. This is an area that you are building a lot of high-level strategic content, like thought leadership content, driving awareness through share of voice with other credible sources. What kind of results are you seeing in that strategy of instead of just creating your own content and sending directly, you're going through third parties? Talk to us about that.
Sure. One of the things when I began working with the OT practice, one of the things we focused on was who are other voices in the industry that have credibility around that topic, because it was newer to a lot of companies. And so teaming up with third parties like analyst firms, publications that have editorial writers that are very credible, even industry experts that are independent, is a great way for us to tie a technology message to the challenges the industry is experiencing. And that lends credibility to say, oh, there's a share of voice coming from that expert, there's technology married with that expertise, and it's bringing a solution to the customer. And so we've leveraged that now in our digital world and our virtual world with webinars, teaming up with experts in the industry who have a readership that are already digital and engaged with that supplier. Now we're taking advantage of their readers in a virtual sense with webinars and podcasts and things that now people have time to listen in on, where maybe before their schedule was a little more tight working in the office. Now at home, they can budget time for us.
Yes, I think with less commuting, you have more time to
For sure.
do learning. And I want to touch on that part because I'm wondering, when you're at home, yes, you have more time, but you're also distracted by kids who are at home, right? And the house
Sure.
is full of everyone. So are you seeing a higher attendance rate for these events? or are you actually seeing less people hanging on throughout the entire event? Maybe they jump on, but they get off.
Yeah, that's a great question. We're seeing greater engagement, meaning the registration numbers are higher in this season. So where maybe in the past we might have only gotten 100 registrations and then typically 30 or 40 would attend an event, we're seeing registrations 200 and greater depending on the topic and who you're targeting. And we're also then seeing greater than 50% attendee rate. Many times it's up to 70 and 80% attendee rate.
Mm-hmm.
We're also, through some of the tools, able to monitor how engaged are they in a virtual world. Are they tuning in for the first 5 minutes and then they drop? Are they staying 30 minutes and drop? What is that staying power? And one recent webinar that I did, I was trying to measure using the tool, how engaged are the listeners? Are they paying attention? Have they dropped off after the introduction? And I found that we had a total of 72 attendees for this webinar out of 109. So great staying power for people attending, registering and attending. And then from the time we started the webinar, where we started with 59, we ended with 56. So it peaked at 70 attendees throughout that about 40 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
but we almost maintained the same amount from start to finish, even though we had a peak in the middle. And I found that just a great statistic to say, because people can budget time for learning or online engagement, and they maybe aren't distracted by someone stopping by their cube or desk or an ad hoc meeting popping up on their schedule, they can budget time and they're very attentive to the content that they're choosing to watch.
I think that now people would probably crave being part of a community too.
Of course.
It's just sitting at home now, right? Some people are just by themselves. So I think that maybe like segue that webinar into some kind of community afterwards, that people share what they're going through and lessons.
That's right. That's right. I think, when you work at home, I work at home regularly. So my norm didn't change in this shift. But for the great majority of people that are out in the workforce, their norm shifted pretty significantly.
Mm.
And so when you were used to maybe going to lunch with colleagues during the day or having meetings face-to-face during the day, you had a lot of community in that environment. And now you have the opportunity to make community just differently, virtually.
Yes.
And it gives them an opportunity as well to broaden their community because they're not just in their own work environment, but they're connecting with peers and other experts in the industry.
I know you opened up your technical learning recently, maybe things that were not for free because they're quite technical to get certified. What made you open it up for free, and what kind of reception have you received?
So one of the things we hear consistently from customers is their ability to find enough experts with cybersecurity experience to help them manage and keep their environment secure and segmented across a network. And so learning has always been part of Fortinet's DNA. And we've built up a library, a catalog of online learning. And as you said, some was free, some was charged. And we thought, as we saw the webinar statistics increase and the stickiness of that virtual learning experience in a webinar increase, it really motivated us to say, let's make more cybersecurity experts by getting this training quickly in the hands of people that are both hungry for it and have time for it now. So we gave them the opportunity where now they can go through anything in our online catalog for free. And those courses, some of them are multi-modules, so it's a commitment, and then they get certified. Some of those modules move into a proxied exam, which they then, once they've completed the coursework, get a proxy exam. And as you think about that, now you're enabling a greater workforce of experts. You're also giving them career development so they can expand what they know. And they're adding value just to themselves in an environment where, like you said, there wasn't a community in this virtual world, and now they're opening the door to that. And we found great success. I think the last statistics I read were that about a new person every 11 seconds was registering for one of our courses. And I believe in the first week or two, we had 80,000 students join different levels of courses. So if that isn't a key indicator of their hunger for it, I'm not sure what else you could measure that shows that success.
Sounds like you're generating quite a bit of pipeline for their sales team. Is it too early to actually see the ROI as far as revenue close from these events?
I think it's a little early to tell because we've not only shifted from face-to-face to virtual events, but there's a different way to engage them now virtually once you've gotten them to a webinar or a roundtable or something that's been online. I think when I think about 6 weeks ago and you were going to a trade show like RSA or one of the larger events, you could have a qualified conversation with someone, look them in the eye, discuss their initiative, and you had a personal connection so that then when the follow-up occurred, you could take that personal connection and help advance to the next steps in the sales process. Today, virtual is probably one of the first connections you make. So you don't see them often when you look in the eye because every virtual event doesn't show video. So it's a different follow-up because the next step is also virtual and the next step is also virtual. And so it's too soon, I think, to tell in this virtual world. Will that virtual experience change how customers engage and buy, as far as speeding it up or slowing it down? I don't think we know yet, but engagement is high. So I'm hopeful that high engagement means high new opportunities and a high level of closing.
And I wonder how much of this will remain virtual even after the COVID-19 situation has calmed down, because we are seeing how even remote work from home can be very effective, or these remote calls are just as effective as in-person meetings sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen some customers talk about keeping remote workers remote now and not even bringing some of the folks back to their offices. And so we have talked about the fact that more and more, I think events, the traditional events are going to shift the model. Mm-hmm. We've now been able to engage customers virtually without the travel expenses. We've been able to reduce travel expenses to some of those larger scale events, and you can take those funds and put them into other virtual activities. So I think it'll shift the mix. And if the continuation of their engagement happens, I think the virtual event will take a big front seat where a strategic event will become just that. The face-to-face will become much more strategic and I think just as powerful, but in a different mode.
Are you going to test out any kind of new marketing tactics beyond these virtual events and the third-party content marketing approach? Anything else that you're going to try out?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we are working on internally for the roundtable, which is often a good way to engage executives, the C-level, C-suite. They don't necessarily attend all the large-scale events. They like more of a peer-to-peer engagement. And so we've been experimenting with some smaller roundtable events where we bring in one of our strategic executives, maybe it's a CISO, maybe it's one of our technical leaders, and they create more of a roundtable around a theme. A couple of things that I'm working on are more themed around a vertical. So getting leaders in manufacturing together with one of our CISOs that is key in the manufacturing industry. They get a more personal experience. They get a peer connection. We would do it in a video room or Zoom room or go to a webinar room where they can see each other. Some of it becomes more personal. Here's who I am. I like bourbon tasting, or I like golf, or I like horseback riding. So they get a more personal connection with that leader. Plus, they get the knowledge sharing among peers as well as our executive. And I've heard, as we've tried that experiment with a few situations, some of the sales leaders sitting in on those sessions end up striking up Zoom conversations or chat conversations one-on-one with some of the attendees. And it's opened the door for opportunities that we didn't even know were initiatives at that time with that executive. So we're seeing almost immediate pipeline because you're focused on the topic, it's meaningful for the whole group, and they're now relating it to key things they're doing every day. And so I would say, yes, that model is so far successful. We haven't done 100, so we can't say, check the box, the stats say it, but we've done enough samples where it's proving very effective. And I have peers in marketing that are also trying some fun things like a virtual coffee meeting where they send, maybe a Starbucks card or something like that as a way to get the coffee connection, or a virtual wine tasting or virtual happy hours, things that are a little more fun, but yet you can still keep them around a theme and represent your company and the product discussion at the same time.
How about social media? How are you leveraging it during this time?
Yeah, so we've done a couple of things that maybe are standard, but we've done more of it. So as we've done our webinars, we've been using a lot more social channels to promote them.
Mhm.
The traditional email invite to webinar, while that still happens, social engagement is also another place that we're seeing some uptick in engagement for our content. And then we mirror some of our more premium content with maybe a short video where we kind of highlight findings or some of the research nuggets from that paper into a short video that would then draw folks into consuming the content. And that's all being done through social channels. And then experimenting with the podcast concept. Many podcasts can be 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes even. We're experimenting with some shorter form content in a podcast format that gives them maybe a 5-minute discussion on a topic with a couple of nuggets and then refers them on to more detailed, more thorough content.
Excellent. That sounds really fun, trying different things and see what kind of results you get.
Sure. Got to experiment a little bit. You know, it's like the scientist in their lab. This is how marketing scientists do the experimentation.
Yeah, I would think that you also have a lot of great content relevant to the situation, which is providing that security for the healthcare providers, for example, frontline providers.
Right. Yep. They need to have access to records and content that needs to be protected, but yet they need it to do their job. So we've had teams in some of the regions also doing quick setups of pop-up clinics, I guess is how I define them, but yet giving them that access securely so they can do the treatment of the patients as they need to.
So it sounds like you're experimenting with a lot of marketing strategies and then tactics, and some of those are working out really well. What other tips are you interested in sharing?
So 2 things come to mind. One is often when you write or produce content, you think of it in ebooks, webinar handouts, slideshows, white papers. But I think in this era, people are looking for short form content. And so one of the things that I've learned and am continuing to learn through this journey is think about your content as a snackable. You know, think about something that might be 12-page webinar that you could make it a snackable piece, like, you know, a short video clip, or maybe just a 1-page checklist that you could pull the key points from that white paper into something short form. So people can grab it, consume it, and then decide if they need or want more, or maybe they take the short form and forward it to a friend, and that kind of cascades your content out to more than just that one look.
Right.
The other thing I think that's important is, you know, people now have time in front of their computer because they aren't interrupted in their day-to-day work. So they are doing some web searching, and if you want to be found on the web, you have to have a good set of keywords. So when they search, they find you or find what you're expert at. And I think now's a great time to think about how your keywords are working or not, adjusting them accordingly, and making sure that in the search experience of your target audience, they're finding you and finding your most important content to help them on whatever project or initiative they're working on.
Excellent. Well, this has been really informative. Thanks for sharing the lessons learned and the tips on the marketing front with us, Cheryl.
Thank you. It's been fun to think about this and think about what's been working and put some of these ideas into practice and experiment a little. We don't always have time in marketing to do that, and now we've been given that opportunity.
There you have it, folks. Take it up with Jessica Lee, Cheryl Hatlevig from Fortinet.